Services, and I'm the moderator for today's news conference. Joining us today are the Honorable John Haggie, Minister of Health and Community Services, and the Honorable Jerry Byrne, Minister of Immigration, Skills, and Labor, and the MHA for Corner Brook. We ask that you keep your phones muted until it is your turn to speak, and our news conference will begin shortly.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you everyone for joining us virtually for an important update on a project which is very important to healthcare for Newfoundland and Labrador. I'm very pleased to be joined with my colleague and friend, Dr. John Haggie, to give an update on some of the equipment and services available at the new modern acute care hospital in Corner Brook. I'll begin just quickly by saying that we as a government are very, very proud of the fact that we've been able to fulfill a major requirement that was missing for many, many years in Western Newfoundland and the province generally. We were able to take the decision to invest $870 million into a new healthcare campus in Corner Brook. Now, with that, with all actions, of course, sometimes there are you expose yourself to, or you expose the issue to other considerations and points of view. We have a conflict underway, which, as member for Corner Brook and having represented the people of Western Newfoundland for many, many years, I have and I know that the position of the government of Newfoundland and Labrador and the people of Western Newfoundland, the users of the acute care services in Western Newfoundland, we are not far apart at all. Today, Minister Haggie and I will outline a strategy to make sure that there is no gap, to ensure that there's full trust and confidence, and that the people will be receiving the services that are medically needed. So with that, I'll throw the microphone over to you, Dr. Haggie, to say thank you, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Jerry. The issue around the acute care hospital in Corner Brook has gone on for many years and through many iterations. One of the jewels in the crown of this new facility is the Cancer Care Centre with radiation therapy and the bunkers. There has, however, lately been a distinct lack of clarity around some of the diagnostic equipment that is going into the hospital. Just for a bit of context, the timeline is that we, Western Health, will get the building in 2023. Things are currently on schedule and under budget, as far as I'm aware. The building will then have to be commissioned. And as part of this, there will be the bunkers, which will require scrutiny and authorization from Canadian nuclear regulators. And that can take a little bit of time, even with the best endeavors. So it will be a little bit of time between now and when the radiation services in Western Memorial are up and running and treating patients. The issue around the PET scanner has caused a lot of concern, and there's certainly a lack of clarity around it. We have built into the facility the foundations and the structure to take a state-of-the-art PET scanner. The decision around what that technology should look like, however, is still something of an open question because of the time difference between now and when the building is actually delivering services. And I think because of the uncertainties that have been generated mainly out in social media and some of the mainstream media, but I think there's a need for us as a government, as a department, to inject some clarity and to put back some trust. So what we have decided as a government, on the recommendations of myself and Minister Byrne, is to place the money for a PET scanner in trust with a trusted third-party group, namely the Western Healthcare Foundation. This money will be there for the purchase and installation of a PET scanner. There will be $2 million that will be there, and the decisions about what to do with that and how it should be spent will be clearly based on recommendations of the cancer care providers delivering the service to the people in Western region at the time then those services are up and running, so that there will be an appropriate purchase of what will then be state-of-the-art equipment, so we avoid the risk of something sitting there for a couple of years from now and simply becoming obsolete. The important thing from our point of view is this is a gesture to restore the trust and the confidence of the people on the West Coast that it is our intent to provide them with state-of-the-art equipment to provide cancer care. I hope that this will deal with this issue. It's something we've not done before, but I think it's something that's needed given as I said, the lack of clarity there. And so in discussions with Minister Byrne and our colleagues at the cabinet table, this is an approach we feel will go some significant way, or should, to restoring that confidence. And so with that, Jerry, I'll hand it back to you for some closing comments.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Haggie. That does state clearly what is the intent and what has always been the intention. I will recap by simply saying, one does not spend as a government $870 million, one does not commit $870 million to a healthcare campus for the West Coast in the province. One does not include cancer radiation therapy for cancer patients. One does not spend literally hundreds of thousands of dollars to prepare for the eventuality of a PET scanner without the intention of putting in place that state-of-the-art technology. With that said, there has been some inferences or some inputs that have suggested that once again this would be a broken promise. I can just simply state from my own layman's point of view, I remember this time last year or thereabouts, shortly before and during a campaign that the last election campaign, that there were statements being made that there would never be a hospital in Corner Brook. There would never be a hospital, that this was yet another broken promise. And today we can trumpet proudly that, and for the right reasons, there is an $870 million commitment that's currently being built, a contract for a new hospital and healthcare complex, including a long-term care facility. So true is it for the PET scanner. So to ensure that there's complete and accurate information out there, I've asked Minister Haggie to come forward and just present his no-nonsense way of approaching difficult and complex issues, and he has done so. And I am very, very pleased with his leadership. He has led us and this province through a global pandemic, putting always patient care and personal health first for each and every one of us, and community health first. He's done it again. This commitment of $2 million is not to be held in government's hands. It's to be held in an organization which is very near and dear to my heart and to the community's heart, an organization we all trust, the Western Healthcare Foundation, which has been raising money and supplying the best healthcare equipment for decades. It is an organization we trust and who always puts patient care first. The decision will be led by exactly the trigger point or the time frame to put this technology in place will be made by those who we also trust most, the cancer doctors. No one would ever argue that a cancer doctor would think of anything else other than the patient care first. So we're covering that basis. Can the money be used for something else? Well, in the hands of the Western Healthcare Foundation, with the trust and the agreement that would flow with it, it would be used for that which is intended to. So we have a community-based organization, hand in glove, with physicians, the people who we trust most for our care, making this decision. As the Minister of Health so clearly articulated, that in 2023 we will have a building, a huge and beautiful building, a 600,000 square foot building. It will take a certain amount of time, not by choice, but by reality, to turn that 600,000 square foot building into a hospital. But in addition to that, we can move what we've already provided at Western Healthcare, at Western Memorial, fairly quickly and seamlessly into the building to turn it into the hospital. What is abundantly clear to myself and others as laymen is that it will take some period of time, some short period of time, but some period of time, not by choice but by necessity, to adapt to nuclear radiation medicine, nuclear radiation therapy for cancer patients, to get this up and running, to get the entire the processes in place and the healthcare protocols in place by the doctors. There will be some period of time, not by choice but by necessity. So in that interim period, it does not make any sense to the reasonable people that I have been speaking with to purchase technology which is quickly becoming antiquated. It's the nature of, as Dr. Haggie explained to us, and I've independently sought out thoughts about, is that PET scanning technology has a box life, a shelf life of some 8 years. I actually thought it was longer, but it's actually shorter than that. So to put in place a piece of equipment which we know is rapidly becoming obsolete just by its very nature of the evolving nature of the technology is not prudent. I believe this is a very, very strong, wise, sensible, patient-driven approach that puts the decision-making into the hands of those who we trust, the hospital foundation and the community members that make it up, the doctors, the cancer doctors who would never compromise patient safety, and it guarantees this by putting the cash in place in trust with the foundation. This is a solid answer. It completes trust. I recognize that there's some cynicism that is out there in the community because for decades, for years and years and years, we heard promises about a new hospital and a new long-term care that were not fulfilled. And I heard that as early as last year. Those same promises or those same things being, fully functioning hospital being built. And why do we have it being built? Because of the leadership of Dr. John Haggie. It's the same reason why we have, phenomenal facilities being built in Grand Falls, Windsor, and Gander, and in St. John's, in healthcare investments in this province, which have been unprecedented. So I do recognize some of the cynicism. Our government has always delivered on what we said we would deliver on. We've always made prudent choices. Dr. John Haggie has led us through a global pandemic, always taking into consideration our care and needs first. He's done it again. Now we have to let good science, good, strong public health care policy take shape and form. We will get our PET scanner, and it will be the best technology that can be provided. With that said, Dr. Haggie, I think we'll take questions.
Thank you, Mr. Byrne. For the benefit of our speakers, there are 3 reporters registered for today's call. Reporters will each have an opportunity to ask at least 1 question and 1 follow-up. If time permits, there will be an opportunity for an additional round of single questions. Our first questions are from Michael Connors with NTV. Please go ahead.
Hi, so is this announcement today driven by the politics of the moment? Because this morning the Tories put out a press release promising they'll put a PET scanner in Corner Brook if they form a government, where we're potentially on the eve of a provincial election here. So is this announcement today to kind of solve a political problem that you had in Corner Brook?
I didn't know they had put out a press release, but
I read that press release after the decision had been arrived at this morning by ourselves in discussion.
So this is in no way connected to the fact you might be going to the polls soon?
Absolutely not. Let's. If you've asked the question, it deserves to be answered, and I will answer the political question. There was a lot of politics around this hospital. You were right to ask that question because there was a lot of politics around this hospital and its services. In 2007, this hospital was announced. It was announced with a total budget of $136 million. From 2007 until 2015, next to zero, no action was taken except to spend $40 million on a very elaborate dog walking park in Corner Brook. So if you're sensing the sort of the emotion and the frustration in my voice, is because as a member of the community of Corner Brook in Western Newfoundland, I felt that frustration myself. But yes, there were politics around that, and commitments were given that were never ever fulfilled. And in fact, when we formed government in late 2015 and started to put our shoulder to this immediately, what we discovered is that the planning level, the amount of planning for this hospital, was at best inferior. I could think of more appropriate and much worse words. But with that said, we had to take on the challenge of getting a long-term care facility and a hospital in place. That effort was led by Dr. John Haggie and his team at Health and Community Services, along with our great team at Transportation Works and the Cabinet providing input. And decisions were taken that resulted in a 600,000 square foot hospital being built, a long-term care with 145 beds, a state-of-the-art facility. And now we're at the point where, because of certain cynicism that is genuinely, somewhat justifiably that may be out there, despite the fact that the structure is there and it's being built and it's there for the eyes to see, They want to know exactly where the PET scanner sits. And again, I'll repeat the statement that you do not you do not commit $870 million to a hospital, watch it being built, have the long-term care facility now commissioned and providing services to those in need, commit to extensive medical imaging technology, and as well as building and putting in place the foundations, the structures to accommodate the PET scanner. Today, what we're announcing is just to fulfill what is very easy to do in that context. We are making sure that as we said would occur, is occurring. We're committing $2 million. It is not a difficult commitment to make because that commitment was being made by this government in any way, shape, or form.
Our next questions are from Brian Callahan with VOCM. Please go ahead.
Thank you. On the topic of cynicism, forgive us all for viewing this as making sure that that the ministers are on the same page in the lead up to the days of an election. I just want to be clear as to what's changed. I mean, initially, Dr. Haggie had mentioned that it could be several years still before the PET scanner is actually there, and Minister Byrne had said, well, it will be there. What has changed today?
We've put the money there to make sure that when the decision is made, it can be bought.
So when will the decision be made? Roughly, I mean, I know you're putting it in others' hands, but as the health minister and as the member for the area, Mr. Byrne, can you just clarify for people in Corner Brook how this changes the arrival of the PET scanner and the timelines?
As Dr. Haggie has always said, and as the oncologists, the cancer doctors who we have consulted and who offered their opinion to us, there is a time frame that for optimum efficient use of installation of the PET scanner. They have said themselves that during the course of commissioning and licensing and accreditation, this is again, it would be unfair and not in accordance with fact to suggest that a choice is being taken for a delay. It is a necessity. It's a medical necessity, a nuclear medicine, a regulatory necessity that there may be a period of time, in which case, if you think this through, Mr. Callahan, a real challenging question would be, why would anyone purchase a piece of equipment knowing that it would not be efficiently used or necessarily even installed in the immediate, knowing that the period of time of obsolescence is incredibly short? I think you as a solid reporter would be asking the question, what were you thinking? Why wouldn't you put that equipment in when you can acquire the state-of-the-art technology, the best of the best, that after having some period of time where oncologists, cancer doctors, those who treat us for cancer, can assess their own needs and establish what the best benchmark is, you would be, as a great reporter, would be asking the question, what were you thinking by buying a piece of equipment and keeping it in a box for any period of time, growing older each and every day, when you could have listened to your own doctors who you trust and put the piece of equipment in place when it's the newest, latest, greatest technology that is definitely going to meet the best needs for cancer care and patient care in Western Newfoundland?
Well, with respect, and I appreciate helping me out with my questions, but I'm just wondering, Dr. Haggie had mentioned... Yes.
That was your question and follow-up.
Oh, okay.
I should have an opportunity for you again when I do a single-round question. So hold your question for the next round, okay?
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Brian. Diane Crocker with the Western Star. Please go ahead.
Hi, yes. Further on the time frame, I mean, you must have some idea on how long it's going to take for these processes, to be accredited. Obviously, I mean, there's other hospitals that have gone through this that you could look at to see. Why can't you give us a more clearer timeline? And I think that's what the people out here on the West Coast are looking for. Is it 2 years? Is it 10 years?
It's not 10 years. The issue of timelines with accreditation of radiation bunkers is the bit that we found uncertain. We had a timeline, for example, with installation of the cyclotron in St. John's, and found that even pre-COVID, that was a lot longer than we had anticipated, because the machine has to be up, it has to be run and pass a whole series of accreditation tests. So that to accredit the cyclotron took us from September of 2017, when it was installed, pretty well to the middle of 2019. So it's difficult to give a timeline, because the one thing I know is if I give you a date, for absolute certain, I know it will be wrong.
If I could just simply add to that, is that the objective here is to create certainty, and that certainty is being created. As Dr. Haggie indicated just a few moments ago, that it is impenetrable and invulnerable to the future decision-making by a future government who may decide that this is not warranted or that does not meet with their priorities. This is a Liberal government priority. We're putting in place the money to create that certainty. We're putting in place with a respected community organization that has always been engaged in patient-first decision-making. We're also triggering this by the decision-making of those who we trust probably the most, who are those who treat us for cancer, who are always there to make patient-first decisions. So to complete the circle of your question, I do recognize, and I think we all recognize, that there's a certain cachet to having politicians answer the question. What has to be part of this equation, which has to be part of this analysis by all reasonable people, is that the decision will be taken not on an arbitrary decision or an arbitrary time frame made at the chair of a press conference by two political officials, two public representatives. It will be made by doctors who we depend on to care for us and who we trust, who have never let us down. So with that said, Ms. Crocker, that's the best answer that can be given, I think, because if someone were to suggest that maybe that's not a great answer, then I think that we're recognizing what they're saying about those who will be making the decision, and nobody would ever say that about those who would make that decision. Nobody would ever say that about the hospital foundation or our cancer care doctors.
Do you have a follow-up question, Diane?
Yes, just in terms of the $2 million itself, will that be enough to cover it? Or will there have to be more money put into it? And will this now be put to the hospital foundation and the people out here to raise that money for something that had been promised to them?
No, this is capital equipment. So the other challenge around diagnostic and basically introducing a new service into a facility will be around operations, for example. The money for the foundation is the capital piece. We've simply put it there as a rather novel way, we thought, of trying to restore trust in the community that government is doing what it says it's going to do, even though they can't do it immediately. The challenge with, I think, the situation from the West Coast, as I see it as a government minister and as not a resident of the West Coast, is that there seems to be, as Minister Byrne has said, some degree of cynicism around the whole process. And folk, for various reasons out there, have generated an air of distrust. And I, along with Minister Byrne and my colleagues, are trying to put that to bed by doing something we haven't done before and involving a fixed sum of money, putting it on one side and giving it in trust to a trusted third party.
Thank you, everyone. It looks like we've run out of time. If you have any additional questions, feel free to email them to myself. My information is on the website. Sorry we had to cut it off so soon, but thank you, Minister. And that's it. Everyone have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.